Alright, I'm gonna make a little bit of a kind of a shortcut video here. I guess we'll call it that. It's basically showing you, and rather than having to assign everything every time you want to test out a texture on I'm gonna do another video showing how to utilize the building shaders on FS19, and I am in 2.8 here as well, so we'll learn a few things here. I'm sure I'll struggle because I've only been using it for about a week, so I'm still learning a few things here. But I'm going to show you how to basically just kind of assign a material, export out, and then we're going to show how we can use a template to not have to constantly mess with those materials and textures, because I've had some issues trying to get the nodes to export correctly. So I'm just going to hit Shift A, we're going to add a plane, we're going to overview 7 to see straight on, and I always like to be orthographic, I think is what I want to call it. Then we're going to split the screen, we're going to go into the UV editor, and go tab to go into edit, and I'm actually even going to open up a texture here to give an idea what we're talking about with the arrays. I'm just going to use a European, and I believe I always get it confused here. 9, yeah, 9 is the kind of the 0 to start. So we're going to hit, I'm going to sync UV selection, so that way when I do something over here, it affects it over here as well. I'm going to go face mode. So when I select that face, you can see it's selected over here. If I unselect it, it's unselected. So I'm going to hit all, we're going to scale it down, scale Y, come on, so tightly it's kind of hard. I just want to put it in the middle of this grid, and then we're going to use the material selector. Now it's not as simple as just moving it around like it is with a vehicle. We'll get into that in another video, but I am going to move it to the left. This will help us later when we go to activate some color stuff. So then we're going to go to our UVs. Right now we just have a, in fact I already did something I didn't want to do. I'm going to move it back over. We're going to add the secondary UV map for the specular. You got to have 2 UV maps for the building shader to work correctly. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this UV map, and once again move it over. Now something else you want to do is go File, Save As. You want to actually save your blend file before, after you make a change and before you export. It just seems to help. It activates the changes. I just haven't. He talks about NLD, and I'll have to share the links to the new exporter and the material selector for 2.8 as well, but he says you want to save your blend file when you open it up and do any kind of change. So we're just going to save that. Now we're simply going to, one other thing, tab, Control A, rotation and scale, and then we're also going to make sure we apply a material. Almost forgot to apply that material in there. So once again, File, we'll just save, File, Export, Giant Size 3D, and we're just going to leave it as untitled for now, Export. So right now, if you right click and edit on this, you can see there's no files selected, and it just has the material with the material ID 1. That's going to be something important in the future. So I just wanted to kind of point that out. We open up this untitled, go into Giants Editor. We're going to start applying these textures, the texture maps, and the shader, and I'm going to show you it takes time, so that's why I like this little template that I've kind of messed with. So we're going to start out, we're actually going to go to, my local drive is C, program files, oops, come on, we're going to look for Steam apps, common, and there's Farming Simulator 19, I'm going to go data, maps, textures, Europeans, what I'm going to mess with on this one, and we want buildings array diffuse for the diffuse map, or albedo, I guess they're calling it. And then we go to gloss. It's already in the same directory, so we're going to go to the specular, the buildings array specular, and then we're going to want the buildings array normal. Oop. Buildings array normal. So obviously it's going to look a little goofy right now because the shader's not applied. I'm even going to, well, I'm not going to add a light yet. I guess we can. Add a light so you can see a little better. Grab that again. Now we're going to scroll down. We're going to apply a shader. So you just hit this for replace add new shader. It's in the data, shaders, building shader. And then I'm going to use texture array. As you can see, what that did is it grabbed that texture, which is that texture there. If you really zoom in, I don't know if you can see the detail in the fuse, but it's actually showing some tile as well that you can't see in this because you can't see the normal and the specular in this view. So, but anyhow, so basically we have, I'll get rid of this guy before he screws me up. Basically what we just did is we applied all the maps, we applied a shader, and then we even applied a variation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to File, Save As, I'm going to go to the desktop, and I'm going to call this, I'm actually going to call it Building Shader, and I'm going to call it Euro, and we're just going to call it Texture, we'll just go Text Array, as a template basically. Now when I close this out, now when you right click on it, edit, you see all these files and there's a material assigned to it, and it tells you that there's a texture, there's a normal map, there's a gloss map. And also you want to pay attention, there's a material ID. So now that you can see how long it took for me to select all those files, select the shader. I'm going to show you now if you come into Blender, you just want to test something out. We can simply hit Tab. If I just want to go down to this area here and then move it to the left, I'm going to actually hit UV Editor. I'm going to delete that, come back here, I'm going to add so it matches up. I'm going to be on a UV map 01. I'm going to go right over there, so I'm just over in the center. So what I'm going to do now, just to show you how it's a little quicker to test, just to see what it's going to look like in Giant Editor, I'm just going to File, Save, File, Export, Giant 3D, and we're just going to go Untitled 2, or 1, I guess the first one was Untitled, Export i3D. So now all we need to do is right click, Edit with Notepad, we're going to put this in another view, and all we're going to do is we're going to grab the materials. This is the Building Shader Euro Texture Array template we made. Grab the materials and the files, Control C to copy, grab the materials and the files, paste over it, and then once again, this is what I was talking about for Material ID 4. We want to make sure we switch this to Material ID 4. Just going to hit Save. Now I minimize and open up the Untitled 1. We're going to hit Control L to add a light. As you can see, it changed. Now we have that texture, which matches up. So as you can see, I didn't have to come through here and basically select all those files, find the right directory, and then find the shader. It just saves some time. And and another idea, just to show you how the color works, if you actually go to Use Texture Array Color, and then we come down here and I want to select a different one because this one doesn't have much color in it. So we're going to go Data, Maps, Textures, Shared, and we're going to use Gradient 1, and then you can see it changed it red. And just to kind of give you an idea, so what we'll do is we'll once again go File, Save As, Desktop, and then where'd it go? And then we're going to actually Array Color. Hit Enter to save it, and I'm just going to minimize that. So all we're going to do is we're going to grab, I don't know why I've got two of these open too, so I need to close it before I have a. So just to kind of show you how the color works a little bit, we're going to grab UV Map 1. So that one was in the red gradient. We're going to go up a couple. Actually, I think we got to move up out, so we're going to go up into this area, and then I'm going to get rid of that, add him, move him to the right, so it matches the normal map and specular. Go File, Save, File, Export, Giant 3D, Untitled 2, Export. Edit with Notepad, so we're going to do the same thing. We're going to actually close that, close that guy. We're going to open our color template. And we're just going to grab materials up to files, Control C. Materials up to files, Control V. And we're going to call it material 4 to match that. Hit save. Back down, untitled 2. Control L to move in, and it's just red. I think that's what the other one was. I have to move far enough up to get out of that tile. The gradients are a little weird. I'm still working on that, but you can see we were able to change textures and test it without having to come over here and change those maps again. So that's just how to do a simple one material. I'll show you how to do a double material here. So what we can do is we can hit tab, get into object mode, shift A, mesh, plane, and we're just going to move him down here. So what we're going to do is we're going to call this node of material. We're just going to rename it plane 1, and then when we grab this plane, we're going to hit new. We're going to call him plane 2. So now we have 2 materials basically, and I'm not going to get too much into these because I kind of showed how them worked. I'm just going to go ahead and hit file, save, file, export, Giants i3D. We're going to go up to Untitled 3, export i3D. We're going to go ahead and open, because we have 2 materials. I'm just going to kind of start over on this one. So basically, just to show you, I've already made one mistake here. So see how they're, even though I had different material names, they're both same plane 1 over here, and that's why I made a mistake. And the good thing I did make a mistake, so I can show you how to fix that. So there's a couple of different ways you can fix that. You can come right in and you can edit it and simply change. See how these are all matching? The only thing that's different is plane 1, plane 2, just as a material name. So because these diffuses are the same, nothing's different. Giant's editor is saying, oh, this is kind of nonsense, it's redundant, why are we using 2 materials? So what we have to have is we actually have to have a difference in those materials. So I'm going to change that color a little bit, hit save. Now when I open up Untitled 3, now when I select plane, it's plane 1. When I select plane, it's plane 2. So just to show you now, and you can see the color difference. The other way that I could have done that as well to fix getting that duplicate is I could go back to object mode, and I could simply just select that base color and just kind of move it over here. File, save, file, export, Giants i3D. We're just going to go to 4, export. And now when we open up, and to even kind of show you the difference as well, we'll minimize this. When I right click and edit this, you can see there's a color difference. They're not identical. So the cool thing about it now is when it's in Giant's editor, in fact we'll get rid of that guy. So now you have plane 1, plane 001, and it's plane 2 on the material. So now when you make changes in one, so if we come in here and we just want to add, if I want to go C, and as you can see this takes time, that's why I like the whole idea of this little template. Steam apps, common, 19, and we want to go data, so let's do the same thing with maps, textures, European, buildings array diffuse, I'm going to go to gloss, buildings array specular, normal, buildings array normal. We can come on down to shader, data, shaders, go building shader, variation, texture array. So then I can see if this works like I want it to. Let's hit a light so we can see a little bit. So we'll grab this guy and we'll go in. Let's go data, maps, textures, American, oops, nope, shared, maps, come on, maps, textures, American. I'm going to go list so I can see a little better. So we want buildings array diffuse. Get out of there. Gloss. Buildings array spec. Normal. Buildings array normal. And then come on down to the shader. Go maps, textured, shared, and textures. Oh, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm in the shaders. Wow. I'm already 3 steps ahead of myself. Shaders, building shader. And I don't have the right texture. I forgot to add the UV, so let's not do that. Let's go in and make a vehicle shader instead. Data, shaders. So I couldn't use that as an example because I don't have the right texture set up for it. And if we go color mask. So this is not a good example, I guess, because I don't have the right, so I wouldn't even need that map. I could go gloss, data, oh, shared, come on, and we're going to go default spec, and then we'll go default normal, data, shared, default normal, come on. And I don't even know where I had the UV setting, but tab. So it's right on. Yeah, it's going to be messed up because it's a different. Yeah. So that's already a bad example. So we're going to go back out here. And we're going to add in that second texture. File, save, file, export, Giant Size 3D. Gotta love it when I mess up when I'm doing these examples to show you how to save time, huh? So get back out of him, close it out, open back up. Let's go ahead and make sure, yeah, so I got the 2 materials. So let's try this and see if it's even going to let us. Oh, data, maps, textures, American, buildings array diffuse, buildings array specular, buildings array normal. Now I come down to the shader, data, shaders, building shader, no errors, array. Okay, so this is the American array in that section. Now if we come up here, you can see we have a plain one as our material name, so we're going to add the map, data, maps, textures, European, buildings array diffuse, gloss, buildings array specular, buildings array normal, and down to the shader, data, shader, building shader, variation, texture array. Control L for light. As you can see, they're completely different materials and different assignments. And actually, I could actually come up to this guy and I could actually use color even. As you can see, it's yellow. But now what I'll do, sorry all that, that's why I don't like going through and changing all the maps. So we can go File, Save As, and what we'll do is we'll go Desktop, and we're going to call this Buildings Array to Materials. Oops, to Material. And hit Enter. I'm just going to close this guy out. So now, if I go back into Blender and go, you know what, I don't quite like what I did there. Let's go ahead and take this map. We're going to actually scale it down, scale Y, like so. And if I actually want to look, yeah, I'm not going to get into that. Like I said, I'm going to do that in another video. Scale Y back down a little more. And it's not going to match because this isn't on the right array. This is the wrong image. I'm just trying to, I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that UV. I'm going to add. So then they actually match up in the same spot. So now if I hit File, Save, File, Export, Giant Size 3D, we're going to call this 6, Export. So now I can grab, this is two materials, so I'm going to right click, edit him, get rid of that file. And this is the one we're basically just bringing back in that has two materials. Move to other view. So once again, I'm going to grab this whole area. As you can see, there's two materials in there now. Oops. Control C to copy. Grab the file material. We're going to paste. And we have to make sure it matches down here. So we have plane 1 is material ID 4. So we have to come in here and go 4 and 5. And you want to make sure that your materials match up to your names. It's going to throw it off a little bit, but that's something you have to make sure you looked at. So the plane is plane 1 material, and then the plane 01 is, I know, is plane 2 material. So that's something you got to think about as well. But either way, now instead of going all through that hassle of selecting everything when I open it up, everything's going to be applied. So when I hit Control L, now you can see that something has changed down here, but we didn't have to go through and click on that, open up the map, open up the gloss map, the normal map, change the custom shader, you know, and so forth. I don't know if I even, yeah, so I didn't move it to the left, so it won't apply anything for the color, but obviously it changed the actual texture. So anyway, that was about probably 18 minutes longer than it needed of you. I just wanted to kind of show. I did a lot of mumbling and stumbling around, but you see as I make errors, you can see if you make a problem or you make a mistake, how to fix it as well. That just kind of gives you a basic idea how you can quickly do some testing in Blender and bring it out and actually not have to go in and select all those maps. You can just copy it through Notepad. That saves 2 to 3 minutes anyway by the time you start fumbling through all those files. So hopefully that was helpful. I know sometimes I'm not too animatic and exciting about it, but it just kind of shows you how you can save a little bit of time. You can test some things out, and actually you can see, you know, how you can export out of 2.8 Blender 2.8 now without having to use the nodes. You can actually just do it in Giants Editor. So we'll try to do the building shader video next, and that one's probably going to be really long, and I'll probably stumble through that as well, but I'll explain how these grids work a little bit. So we'll see you next time.